We're joined by Israeli diplomat Mark Sofer, who most recently served in Australia as Israel's ambassador here between 2017 and 2020. Mark, thank you for your time. I know it's a horrific time for you personally, but for Israelis and people like me who are not of the Jewish faith but have enormous admiration for what you've achieved in your country, and our hearts go out to you. What's the latest over there?
Well, thank you for those warm words, Peta. Well, we're still, of course, reeling from the utter shock, the unadulterated shock of the carnage of the massacre of upwards of 1,000 people going around their daily lives, the people in a party, whole villages completely eradicated, and almost nobody in this country, which isn't a big country, as you know, it has been unaffected either by family member killed or abducted, or close personal friend, etc. Right now, as you know from your news reports yourselves, the troops, 300,000 reservists have been called up and are massing on the border of Gaza. And worry is also around about the what may happen in the north of Israel, through the Iranian masterminded and proxy of the Hezbollah. But one thing I must say, Petra, and this is very important, what you do feel at the same time with the horror and the shock is a deep and unparalleled resilience, a unity that we only, we have come rarely together before, and that this is what we will win. And there will be a strategic change in the Middle East, in the southern part of Israel. We'll have a strategic change, not a tactical change, not just another skirmish, not just another operation or an interaction, but a strategic change of what will never be again.
Talk to me about the government, the opposition or the parties in the Knesset, because I think this is very important. We've watched some scenes in recent months of disquiet about judicial changes. But given the horrors of what happened on the weekend and the threat, you're right, Gaza at one end, but in the north, obviously the Hezbollah border, of what you possibly could confront, have the politicians responded and come together?
Well, I think it's you're correct. The last 9 months or 10 months since this government's come to power has caused a great deal of disunity. I can even talk on my own behalf. I've been very active and vociferous on the anti-governmental nature of what they have done. The government has done to cause disunity over the judicial overhaul. There's no other word for it. It's not a reform, it's an overhaul, and it's caused enormous split in Israeli society. But that was. Now the situation is completely and utterly different. It's not just a question of Israeli politicians, it's a question of the Israeli public, of the body of the man and woman in the street. There is total and utter unity. Everybody is unified, and we do expect some sort of emergency government, and I stress emergency rather than national unity government, emergency government to manage the war, because the feeling is also among leaders of the opposition, also among members of the public, that this particular government is unable or will not be able to manage this horrendous situation on its own, without the experience of former chiefs of staff that exist in the opposition parties. So the political situation will stabilize for the next period of time while the war is going on. But of course, what will happen afterwards is anyone's guess.
Help us understand, if you have troops on the borders, the reservists are all called up, and I say this for people at home, these are young Israeli young people. I mean, they are, children that you and I would know, young people that have all been trained as required under national service. They are now in uniform with a very, very heavy burden. If you've got troops at the border, if there is this blockade on Gaza, what happens next in terms of basically annihilating Hamas as a continuing threat, but all the hundreds of hostages, their threats today too, that they will start literally executing. They're saying they'll do it on camera in the Islamic State style, executing hostages for every missile strike.
Well, this is, of course, a major and deep dilemma, not just for Israel, would be for any country in the international community. The balance of the need to cause the strategic change, to make sure that the Hamas will never, ever be able to even think about carrying out such atrocities in the future, and weakened to such an extent that they may not, hopefully won't even exist anymore as an entity. And on the other hand, a deep worry for the hostages. I don't think there are hundreds, but certainly over 100, and they have been pulled out of their beds. We're not talking about just people. We're talking of little babies, elderly women pulled out of their beds in the middle of the night, thrown into cars, and driven over the border, and probably sequestered into areas which the beasts, there's no other word for it, or the Hamas believe are safe, underneath hospitals, in mosques, in some sort of tunnel system that they've built up there as human shields. So there's a lot of psychological warfare coming out of the Hamas. We have to manage that, but at the same time never lose the direction that this is a war, and the two need to be balanced. So I don't envy the decision makers, but I do hope indeed that they will reach the end game, which everybody in Israel is united about, as I said.
And the world stands with you. Mark Sofer, thank you.